Crease or uncrease an edge. In this video, we'll use crease and uncrease. In Fusion 360, we want to get started with the supplied dataset car hood. We're going to take a look in the timeline and note that there's a single form feature. We'll right-click and edit this form body. When we do that, you can see the red body underneath. The red body underneath shows the converted brep. If we make a drastic change, notice that as soon as I click on a surface, it's asking me to upgrade the T-spline body. Anytime there's a new tool added to the form workspace, any older form bodies will be prompted to be converted so they can make use of those new functionalities. If I take this selected face and move it down, we can see the transparency underneath of the original body. I'm going to select Cancel, finish the form, and back in the design workspace, I'm going to hide the surface body. But when we go back to the form and edit, the form body is shown there. So if you don't like seeing the transparency underneath, you can always hide the original body. There are also some user preferences that determine whether or not we see ghosted images, but in this case, it's much easier if we just simply hide the body in the design workspace before we edit the form. Now that we've taken a look at changing the display, let's talk a little bit about modifying the form that we see on the screen. This is a complex design that has a lot of curvature, but in some cases, we might want to have sharp edges. In those cases, we want to use a tool called Crease. So let's take a look at some areas of this design that already have a crease. We can see that there's a very sharp transition in this corner. In some cases, that works out perfectly, but in other cases, that might introduce problems downstream in the model. So let's take a look at going to Modify, and we want to select Crease, and we're going to add a crease to some additional edges. We're going to grab these vertical edges here, working our way all the way toward the midline. As soon as we get close to that midline where we have our line of symmetry, you'll notice that the crease carries on. So we'll say OK, and now we've added this crease. With the crease added, we need to make some adjustments by selecting this vertex and simply moving it over slightly, and then we'll say OK. Now let's go ahead and view the model, and that looks pretty good. That crease really helps the design. In some cases, however, we might not want to carry that crease. You'll notice that here, the crease is actually stopped into a smooth transition. We want to make sure that we maintain curvature continuity. We want to make sure that we have that nice smooth transition. So in some cases, we might want to go to Modify and select Uncrease. Then we can select previously creased edges, and we can remove that crease and say OK. When we remove creases, now you can see we have nice curvature continuity in that area. However, it's introduced another problem. This area here really shouldn't have a crease because it's causing problems downstream in the model. So once again, we can go to Modify and Uncrease, and we can remove the crease in this edge. And this will allow us to carry that transition. However, it does mean that we need to go to Modify and Crease and likely carry this crease further down on the design. We want to go all the way to that symmetry line, and now this is a much better transition. We can see that we have that nice smooth transition, but we do have a hard edge here that might potentially cause problems downstream, but for right now, everything looks pretty good. So this is a great tool to play around with, especially if you want to add some small fillets or details downstream. You can certainly do that after the body has been converted, and you can add fillets back in the design workspace. For our examples, however, we want to make sure that this opening here is nice and smooth, but the front area for the grill has that nice crease on the outside and the inside. Let's navigate back to a home view and save the design before moving on.